Most people think life in the ancient world came with a very early expiration date. You were born, you somehow survived childhood, you became an adult at 15, and by 30, well, game over. At least, that's the picture we're usually given. You've probably heard the famous number before. Ancient humans had a life expectancy of around 30 years. And that number sounds pretty convincing. It appears in documentaries, history books, podcasts, and online debates. Someone mentions the benefits of an ancient lifestyle, and another person immediately responds, benefits? Those people died at 30. Fair point, right? Not exactly. Because the number itself isn't necessarily the problem. The real problem is what we imagine when we hear it. Ancient life expectancy doesn't mean the average adult celebrated their 30th birthday, developed a few gray hairs, and suddenly dropped dead. That's not how it worked. And once you understand the math behind that number, the ancient world starts looking very different. Let's break it down. Life expectancy at birth is a population average. It's shaped by deaths at every age, including deaths during infancy and childhood. And in the ancient world, those early years were incredibly dangerous. Imagine a small village with 10 people. 5 of them die before turning 5. The other 5 survive childhood and eventually live into their 50s or 60s. If you combine all 10 lifespans, the average will be surprisingly low. It might look as though nobody in the village lived beyond their 30s, but that's obviously not what happened. Half the group died tragically young. The survivors lived for several more decades. 1 average. 2 completely different life experiences. That's the key. Ancient populations didn't necessarily have a hard biological limit at age 30. Instead, they had extremely high rates of premature death, especially among babies and young children. There were no vaccines, no antibiotics, no modern emergency rooms. Clean drinking water wasn't guaranteed. A minor infection could become deadly. A difficult birth could kill the mother, the baby, or both. Even a cut on your hand could turn into a serious problem. So yes, average life expectancy was low. Ancient life could be brutal. But if a person survived the dangerous early years, their future looked much better than that headline number suggests. They weren't guaranteed a long life, not even close. Disease, violence, accidents, hunger, and childbirth still killed adults far more often than they do in wealthy countries today. But reaching 50 or 60 wasn't some impossible biological miracle. Older adults existed throughout the ancient world, and they weren't just sitting quietly in a corner waiting for the end. They worked, they taught, they cared for children, they remembered which plants were safe, where water could be found, when animals migrated, and how the group had survived earlier disasters. That experience mattered. In a society without books, search engines, weather apps, or medical databases, an older person could function like a living library. Think about it. Who remembers the last severe drought? Who knows how to treat a certain wound? Who recognizes the signs of an approaching storm? Who knows which valley still has food during a bad season? Usually, it's the person who has already lived through those things. That means grandparents and elders weren't useless exceptions. In many communities, their knowledge could directly improve everyone else's chances of survival. But wait, even if ancient adults sometimes lived into their 50s and 60s, weren't they physically destroyed by age 35? You know the image. Bent spine, worn-out joints, barely able to move. Basically, a modern 80-year-old trapped inside a 35-year-old body. There is some truth behind that image. Ancient life placed enormous stress on the body. People walked long distances, carried heavy loads, suffered injuries, and performed repetitive physical work. Without modern dentistry, damaged teeth could cause years of pain. Without surgery, an incorrectly healed bone might affect someone for the rest of their life. So no, we shouldn't romanticize it. Ancient life wasn't a relaxing outdoor wellness retreat. But physical wear isn't the same thing as accelerated biological aging. Traditional populations studied in more recent times have often included adults in their 40s, 50s, and beyond who remained active and socially important. They might not have had the raw speed or strength of younger adults, but they had judgment, skill, and experience. A younger hunter might run faster. An older hunter might know where to look. A younger forager might cover more ground. An older forager might recognize food that everyone else walks past. Getting older didn't automatically mean becoming useless. So what actually changed in the modern world? Why did average life expectancy rise so dramatically? The simple answer is that we became much better at preventing early deaths. Clean water made entire communities safer. Sewage systems reduced the spread of disease. Vaccines prevented infections that had once killed huge numbers of children. Antibiotics turned many deadly bacterial infections into treatable conditions. Food supplies became more reliable in many places. Childbirth became safer. Doctors learned how diseases spread. Public health systems began stopping outbreaks before they reached everyone. Modern medicine didn't suddenly teach the human body how to reach old age. Human beings already had that capacity. What changed was the number of people who were given the chance to reach it. That distinction matters. Suppose 100 people are born in an ancient community. Many might die during childhood. Others could die from infection, injury, childbirth, or violence. Only a smaller group would reach old age. Now imagine 100 people born in a modern, developed country. Far more survive infancy. Far more make it through childhood. Infections are prevented or treated. Serious injuries receive emergency care. Complications during birth are managed by trained medical teams. Naturally, the modern average rises. Not because every modern person has received decades of extra biological programming, but because fewer people are removed from the calculation early. And this also explains something else. Living beyond 60 didn't suddenly appear in the modern era. Ancient literature and historical records regularly mention elders. Philosophers, leaders, writers, and teachers sometimes remained active late in life. Their reported ages aren't always perfectly reliable, so we shouldn't treat every ancient story like a modern birth certificate. Still, the larger point is clear. Ancient societies understood old age because they had old people. They had words for them, social roles for them, stories about them, laws concerning them, advice written by them. You don't build an entire cultural idea around a stage of life that nobody ever reaches. There's another twist, too. The shift from hunting and gathering to agriculture didn't instantly make everyone healthier. Farming allowed communities to produce more food and support much larger populations. That changed human history forever. But early farming also created new problems. People began living close together, making it easier for infections to spread. Diets sometimes became less varied. Heavy dependence on a small number of crops could lead to nutritional deficiencies. Teeth were exposed to more starch-heavy foods, and repetitive farm labor left marks on the skeleton. So the human story isn't a straight line from miserable cavemen to perfectly healthy modern people. It's a series of trade-offs. Ancient communities faced infections, parasites, dangerous births, injuries, and food shortages. Modern societies have defeated many of those threats. That's an incredible achievement. But modern life has introduced or increased other problems. Low physical activity, highly processed food, chronic loneliness, and diseases connected to long-term lifestyle patterns. This doesn't mean we should abandon modern medicine and run into the forest. Please don't do that. It means ancient and unhealthy aren't automatically the same thing. And modern doesn't automatically mean every part of our lifestyle is better for the human body. The truth is more interesting. Ancient humans didn't normally reach 30 and expire because their bodies had completed their natural design. They lived in environments where death could arrive at any age, and where the first years of life were especially dangerous. Those early deaths crushed the average. The adults who survived could keep going for decades. Some reached what we'd comfortably recognize as old age. They became parents, grandparents, teachers, healers, and keepers of knowledge. So the next time someone says, ancient people only lived to 30, remember to ask one simple question. Life expectancy from birth or life expectancy after surviving childhood? Because those are two very different numbers, and they tell two very different stories. Ancient humans weren't built to die at 30. They were built with much of the same capacity for a long life that we have today. The tragedy was that so many never got the opportunity to use it.